Hello there. This Jaguar S-Type R for me is peak Jaguar S-Type. It's the facelift model in British racing green with a 4.2 litre supercharged V8. I've had this car for just over a year now, so please join me to experience some of the thrills, the sills and the oil spills that come with owning a Jaguar S-Type R. So first of all, let's start off with some of the thrills. Now, the most obvious one, and the thing that dominates this car, is the 4.2 litre supercharged V8 engine. It's had the intake modified, which gives more supercharger whine, and it's had the back box deleted on the exhaust, which gives more V8 noise. And it sounds great most of the time, a little bit too much at some points, but generally it's just really good fun. With 400 horsepower on tap and great noises, that's absolutely a key point of the appeal of this car. Not just about racing around though. It is a comfortable, refined and relaxed cruiser. The wind noise is low, the seats are comfortable, the interior is well laid out. It's looking a little bit dated now with this touchscreen, but everything you need is there. It's got heated seats, it's got an old-fashioned navigation system. If you want to go long distance in this car, that's absolutely no problem. The next thrilling aspect of this car is the way it looks. Now, I was never a fan of the way this car looked when it was launched back in 1999. I think the problem that I had, and lots of other people had with this at the time, is that it looked retro, it looked dated even when it was a new car. Now that it's an old car, that really doesn't matter, and I think somehow it just seems a bit more comfortable in its own skin. It doesn't matter that it looks retro. The British racing green colour on this car looks excellent. It's got the slightly modified rear end. Of course, being an R, it's got the front and rear bumpers that are slightly different. Overall, I think it looks great. Now, this car has had a few modifications to it. It does have non-standard alloy wheels, so the Compomotive style wheels I think look great. I do have the original wheels that have been refurbished, and I might put on when I get the next set of tyres. And it's got the modified exhaust tips on the rear, which give it a bit more of a sporty look too. So overall, I think this is what you could call a handsome car. I think it looks great around the British countryside. I'm in Warwickshire and driving around these villages around here, I think it looks very much at home. The next aspect of this car that's thrilling is the value. Yes, it's the end of the Ice Age, but you can still buy dinosaurs like this with 400 supercharged horsepower for £4,000, because that's what this cost me just over a year ago. Now, I have had to spend a bit of money and time working on it since, but I still think, for what it is, it's an amazing load of car for the money. If you look at any equivalent super saloon from the time, from BMW, Mercedes, Audi, perhaps the more obvious but more boring choice, you'd have to pay a lot more than this. So I think this big bruiser of a British saloon stands up very well. I wouldn't want to run it as a daily. It really is prodigiously thirsty. I normally get about 16, 17, 18 miles per gallon out of it, and that's without driving ridiculously hard. The fuel tank isn't very big either, so you can actually pretty much see the fuel gauge moving at all times. But as a fun car for weekends, the occasional trip away, a trip down to the Cotswolds, up to the Peak District, perfect for that for me. Now, you can't talk about a 20-something-year-old Jaguar S-Type that's been used in relatively normal daily use for a good part of its life without mentioning the sills. The one key piece of advice I would give to anyone buying one of these S-Types 20, 25 years old is pop those plastic sill covers off and have a good look at the sills, because they're almost certainly going to need to be repaired. So knowing that they've been done is a massive advantage. You can buy galvanised repair panels, and if you're handy with a MIG welder, it really isn't a particularly difficult job. So I did this one about 9 months ago. Cavity wax inside it now, protected it. It's absolutely fine from here on in. So on to the oil spills. There's two main oil leaks that I've had on this car. The first is the cam cover gaskets, so I've had to do both of them. Because the engine is a V, the cam cover gaskets are at an angle, and the oil pools at the bottom and over time starts to weep out. Then it drops onto the exhaust manifolds and it can cause smoke. So the other oil spills I've had on this car are on the transmission oil cooler pipes. I've seen on forums that it's a typical thing that tends to go. Now what you've got is a predominantly aluminium set of pipes with a rubber coupling that's got a crimped joint. That tends to fail at the crimp. So what I've done is basically cut off the crimped joint and replace that with a compression fitting with a new rubber hose between them. So instead of spending £450 replacing them, it cost me about £70 or £80. So it's all worked out quite well. So overall, would I recommend, having owned an S-Type R for a year, getting one of these if you've got a few £1,000 spare and want a bit of V8 fun? Absolutely.